What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV back here for another panel show for you guys, and we're going to be delving deep into what happened yesterday at Molineux. But on the panel today, we have got Josh Spurs Debates. How you doing, Josh?
I'm good, lads. I'm good and not good, but we'll get into that. But I'm good, lads. Otherwise, hope you're well as well.
Yeah, all good, man. Well, I'm healthy, so that's the main thing, isn't it?
Maybe it's the lack of samosas. That's why you're so healthy.
I need some more samosas, John. But we need
No
to be
high
picking up-
cholesterol, then, yeah.
We need to be picking up some more 3 points. I've got cholesterol withdrawal symptoms, man. But
don't worry, mate. Hopefully this week, mate. Milan and Nottingham Forest, mate. Why not?
All right, let's do it. And we got Alex Samuels as well. How we doing, Alex?
You know, it's a hell of a week, huh? You know, like what can you? It's just I'm sure we're gonna get into it, but yeah, not being great on the football side, but yeah.
Everything else good though.
I've moved. I moved this week to Bristol. So that's where I'm living at the moment.
Get away from away from Tottenham as possible.
Yeah, literally the joke. I've just left to escape the Arsenal fans and get away from Tottenham as well. So
I think we're all going to be following your suit if Arsenal actually do go on and win that league.
Let us know how the rent is up there. Maybe we'll have to go move up to Bristol.
No, we'll do. It's but it's nicer. So yeah, hopefully I'll be there on Wednesday though. Just checking about that.
Nice.
Make the trip to the stadium. But yeah.
Hopefully see you down there. But we've got a lot to talk about today. I've done a poll in the live chat, and it's Conte in or out. And we've had 153 votes so far. 59% of them are saying Conte out at the moment. We'll get into that a bit later on in the show. But what we're going to start off with is there's been a consistent theme with Spurs this season where we've only been able to play for 45 minutes, whether that be the first half or the second half of games. And we want to get into the crux of why that is. We'll start off with you, Josh. Do you have any sort of reasoning why it is that we can only play for 45 minutes this season?
Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, mate. That's the reason, mate. We need to change that name, man. Tottenham Hotspur, because yeah, it is a enigma. It is an enigma, Ben and Sim, that we only play first halves or second halves. Mate, that is a big question to start the show off with. I think there's many reasons. I think the managers take blame, and I say managers because that obviously puts Stellini in it for the last few games. I think the players have disappointed mentalities not being there, as well as physical energy, and you then have to blame the board somewhat for not reinvesting in the Jan window, considering what they'd seen for the first half of the season. And they did a little bit of investment, and Porro looks good from yesterday's performance, but maybe we were another player short. You know, maybe a defensive player, maybe a left back to cover Perisic, or a centre back to cover Eric Dyer or Lenglet. So you could blame all three parties, but the majority of the blame goes probably on the players, mate.
Really on the players. Well, Sim, you
so,
thinking the majority of the blame going on the players right now for the 45-minute only appearances?
I think it's hard to put your finger on exactly why this is the case, because if it was just purely, I mean, I don't know if it's down to player quality or just like the profile of player in terms of their physicality, because at the moment, what we're seeing is, for a large part of the season, especially in the first part of the season, it did seem to me that Spurs were having slow starts. We were obviously coming on strong in the second half, but a lot of people were wondering, I remember at the beginning of the season, is this a tactic? Is this something that Tottenham are trying to do, conserve energy so they can hit them physically in the second half? Or is it just we're not sticking to the game plan and we need to kick up the arse for Antonio Conte at half time, and that's why we're starting games slowly? Now, we've seen in the last few games against Leicester, we saw yesterday. I can't remember when. I think we've seen against Man City. We've had really strong starts to games. We've been against Man City, we were leading. Against Leicester, we were 1-0 up. Yesterday, we had a brilliant first half, and then the second half, we seem to run out of steam. We seem whenever we seem to not be able to compete physically in the second half once the game wears on, and we seem to get overrun, and we seem to not be able to compete. So now I'm starting to think maybe it was was a tactic. Maybe it was something that Conte had identified in terms of the physicality of these players. Or maybe they're not up to keeping up that intensity for 90 minutes, because we like to, when Antonio Conte team are playing at their best, they like to play very quickly. They like to play very intensely. Yesterday in that first half, we were pressing very aggressively. We were pressing high up the pitch, and we were quite intense in our play. And then in the second half, especially in the latter part of the last half an hour, we were completely overrun. We were physically dominated. We couldn't keep it up. But that is in stark contrast to how a lot of games went in the first half of the season, when we were definitely, and maybe even you could definitely say even recently as Chelsea and West Ham, where in the first half we're definitely a lot slower, definitely trying to keep the opposition at arm's length, and then hitting them physically in the second half and finishing the game a lot stronger. So I know Conte has said during the season, he was asked about this pressing and stuff like that, and he said, like, look, our the way we play is always to press high, always to press more intensely, but sometimes you got to look at the profile of player we have and look at the defenders that we have sometimes. And, you know, if we leave too much space in behind, we're going to get destroyed, and that's why sometimes we don't always press as highly as we want to. So it's something that clearly has been a problem all season. The coaches have identified it, but haven't been able to get to grips of trying to fix the problem, being able to put in a 90-minute performance. We've seen it so rarely. I can think off the top of my head, maybe Man City at home, maybe Fulham at home. Like, you can count on one hand probably the amount of games we've actually been able to put in a 90-minute complete performance this season. And I obviously you can't put your finger on why it is. It must be something to do with the profile of players. They can't keep up physically for 90 minutes. But maybe you got to say, is Conte asking too much? Is he too demanding? Is that what the problem is? Is he asking the players to put too much effort in and they're burnt out by the 60th minute? Or is it a case of the players aren't able to do the what is instructed of them? It's very peculiar, because when we're looking good and when we're on our game and we're looking sharp and intense, we actually look really good and we play good football. I thought we played some really good football in the first half yesterday, and we were looking really strong. But at half-time, I said this, at half-time on the watch-along, I said, I'm worried because we've played so well, but we can't usually keep this level of performance up for 90 minutes, and we haven't scored. And that's a big problem for me. And lo and behold, what happened in the second half? They will switch things up, and we couldn't keep up our performance for 90 minutes. So I don't really have an answer, to be honest.
Sim, can I just say, Sim, before you go around the room, so if the players can only do it for 45 minutes, then how do we not blame the players? Because every other team.
I'm not saying don't blame the players. It could be the players' fault.
Yeah. That's what I think.
But then, is Conte asking the players to do something they're not able to do? I don't know. But it does also feel like Conte has kind of seen this issue and has kind of and has adjusted accordingly. Ergo, a lot of these games, that's why we're seeing slow starts. We're seeing us kind of conserve our energy a lot in the first half, and then hit teams in the second half. And to be honest, as much as that's been, people criticise that, if you look at the Chelsea and the West Ham games, like, that tactic has worked. But in a lot of games this season, it hasn't worked because we've made really bad mistakes that have undermined the game plan, like against Liverpool when Dyer's headed it straight to Salah and we've scored. Against Newcastle, Lloris comes flying out of his goal and gives a goal away. Against Aston Villa, we've gifted a goal away from nowhere. So maybe that is a plan that we have sought after this season, but bad individual errors have undermined that plan. Maybe that's what I'm thinking as well. But it is a very peculiar one why we can't seem to put in 90-minute performances.
Alex, what are you feeling?
I think it's a lot about the physicality of the team, as you were saying, Tim. And specifically, I think we tend to really only be able to put in good performances for a whole 90 minutes after we had a week off, really. It's when we have the games every 3-4 days that we tend to really struggle, and I think that it links a lot to the physicality. Now, is that a player issue? Is that a management issue? I lean more towards the management for that, and how they're conducting maybe training sessions. I'm no expert on training sessions. I don't know the ins and outs of that. However, clearly there is an issue there because the players just can't seem to do it for 90 minutes of a game. Now, usually how games will work, you'll have phases, where the opposition will have the ball, Tottenham will have the ball. but it does seem there is definitely a pattern which we've identified of potentially conserving energy in the first or sometimes the second half and going all out in the other. And I don't. It's not sustainable, as I think we've seen, because I think also it can leave us quite tactically vulnerable and make us quite predictable to the opposition, because they'll be able to tell when we're going to be doing that and how to respond appropriately. So yeah, I actually do put a lot of blame on the management for that. I guess on Conte, because there is, I think you're right, there is definitely a tactical aspect to it.
Yeah, I kind of agree kind of fully with you there, Alex. I think that it is a physicality issue with the players. And if it is a physicality issue with the players, then the management need to adjust that accordingly. And I don't think they're doing that at the moment.
But that's the point. Haven't they done that by conserving their energy in the first? Isn't that a tactic? Isn't that the way they're trying to do it?
If they're doing that by conserving the energy, then why do we go full out in the Wolves game yesterday? Why are we going full out in some games?
I think Wolves yesterday. I think Wolves yesterday. One of the reasons probably we went all out in the first half is because we want to try and win the game early to conserve energy leading up to the game in Milan on Wednesday, because we know it's a very important game.
Yeah, but Sim, if we're going to do that, but if we're going to do that, because Ben's saying, why would we go out full 100 miles per hour if we're going to conserve energy? Then you've got to blame the manager for not subbing out the players around the 65th minute, because then we've done the bit where we've used the energy. So that's where it goes over to the managers, doesn't it, on that point?
No, I agree, but we weren't winning.
In too many games, we're leaving it till the last 10, 20 minutes to make changes in games. And if the players are not physically up to it, then how is that the right course to take? It makes no sense whatsoever.
Specifically going for the Wolves game in particular, I thought some substitutions were awful as well.
All of them were awful.
How the game was managed, for example. I mean, taking off Porro when he was probably just getting into the game, really, and you could start to see. I don't think he was that good. To be honest, I expect more of him. But you could see some green shoots there of what he was trying to do and getting a bit further forward in some more attacking positions. And he hooks him in what I can't remember the minute. It was pretty early. So yeah, and then I mean, what the hell is Dan Juma doing at this club? Like, if he can't get ahead of Lucas Moura, to be honest, I don't know what he's doing here apart from injury cover. To be fair, I just don't understand. Like, why don't you bring him on ahead of Lucas Moura, who, let's be honest, does this typical thing of making a few dribbles and then it goes nowhere.
How is it 2023 and we're still using Lucas Moura as like our first sub to come on when we've got the likes of Richarlison, 60 million, Dan Juma, January loan signing? I mean, how are we still losing Lucas Moura like this? I don't get it.
It's tactical, isn't it? That's why he's not made that change on anything but tactical. He's seen something in the middle of the park where he said, Lucas Moura, I want you to do this. And if it's carrying the ball into the final third, which Lucas can do, and then lose it, as we all know, half the time, maybe that was a tactical instruction that I want you to take to basically hold on to the ball more, to retain the ball more. Yeah, basically. Yeah, exactly. But I think that must have been the thinking, because what else does Lucas offer apart from that is what I'm trying to say.
But I want to know from you guys if there is a physicality issue with the players and about like trying to keep up that kind of intensity for 90 minutes. Like, how do we solve it? Like, is there a way of solving it? Is it just something we're going to have to put up with from now to the end of the season?
Yes.
What I'd say is that Pochettino, who obviously there's been a lot of talk about him recently, he was very notorious for double training sessions and working players very hard in pre-season and getting them accustomed to tactical instruction and that sort of thing. And I don't know, maybe this is a bit of a cop-out, but you look back at South Korea in the summer and just how intensely the players are worked at the start of the season, and that does maybe give some warning signs as to why maybe near the end of the season we're faltering. Players running out of steam.
But it's been a problem the whole season, not just now. It was even at the beginning of the season. It seemed to be a problem.
But I think it's getting worse. That's my point. I think it's getting worse now. And we're more inconsistent going from one game to another. And to be fair, it happened last season as well, when it was win lose for a while before we really started to put a run together. and that did coincide with Conte coming in as well. So
is it
yeah,
a case of just if you ask this team to play 2 games a week, this is what you're going to have to expect?
we don't have a good enough squad for I think and the money we've spent on it, we should have a good enough squad, but for whatever reason it's just not there. It seems to be we have the A team and the B team.
I think
Yeah.
I think United are showing how it's done, lads. You've got an average squad there. You've got some half decent players. You've got a couple of decent players. You've got Casemiro and Rashford obviously smashing it. Fernandes, Bruno, sorry, back. Ten Hag is changing it and getting it right every week. If you look at what he's doing by even putting Shaw in centre back, changing it, and he is the master rotator right now. And if he wins today, you know what I mean? He's manager of the month. So I don't know how Conte's even in that question, to be honest, because we're all sitting here crying at the moment. But obviously it was February. But going back to Ten Hag, he does it really well. And the other good thing about the thing is we don't hold the ball enough. So if you don't retain the ball enough, then you've got to be really compact and play on the counter, which is how Tottenham have done it in the past. You've got to pick away and stick to it. Trying to go out there and win the game on front foot football and then not having a plan B when the other team gets their 15-minute spell, that's a recipe for failure, because then you're just hoping they don't score. And we've got to be able to switch tactics in the game. So what we did in the first half was brilliant. You go in at halftime, you're coming out saying, right, guys, they are at some point going to come at us. He can see Lopetegui making subs. He can see him trying to change the game. The guy's experienced in Europe in the Champions League. Stellini should have had a plan B. You know, something should have been told to those players that this is what you have to do in terms of shape and organization. And then if he hasn't done that, he deserves to get, you know, most of the blame. If he has done that and the players haven't followed instruction, then for me, it's obviously the players, because then they should be following those instructions. And that's what Conte's paid the big money for, is to make those subs and to make those tactical changes, especially in the second half, because that's where you can turn it around or protect your lead. And for me, that was the most disappointing thing yesterday, is I didn't see change, nor did I see enough subs or tactical change. And if you look at that left-hand side from Davis, Højbjerg, Perisic and Son, they all played against Sheffield United, right? Away. That left-hand side was 100 and 200 minutes odd, you know, 175 minutes into this game. Did he look at that left-hand side and think, right, do you know what do I do to switch it up? Like you mentioned, Danjuma. You know, could Ben Davis have come in, Eric Dyer in the middle and Longley to the left? The fact that we didn't see any change is more of a worry than actually losing the game. And now when we play AC Milan on Wednesday, if they get the first goal, and obviously away goals don't count anymore, what are we going to do? Are we just going to hope that the same template does, you know, somehow we blag it, or are we going to see Conte change it? Yesterday, Arteta took a sub off. He took Emil Smith-Rowe off. He brought him on and took him off. We've seen Ben White go right back. You know, where's our adaptability? Where are our players being able to change positions? Why hasn't Emerson been coached to work on the left? Why hasn't, you know, I don't know, Ben Davis, for example, if he can't play left back, why isn't someone else coach? Like, where's the plan Bs in the team? You can't just say you're good at that and that's all you're going to be. Look at Luke Shaw. You know, he's been trained to play centre back. So where's the tactics and the training and coaching to make these players more adaptable in those games? Because if we're just going to stick to he's always a right back, he's always a left back, and he's just going to do that, when we do have injuries, which we have at the moment, we're just sitting there with holes in the team. Do you know what I mean? So the coaches have to take a lot of blame for that as well.
I'd say the answer is probably because this is where Conte's gone in his previous clubs. He's implemented the same system everywhere he goes, really, and it's like a book, isn't it?
It's a template.
A template, and he knows exactly what kind of players he wants in each position. I think that's probably why you aren't seeing, I know, for example.
So he's stubborn. Is he stubborn?
Sense about it. Does he? I think maybe he deserves to be after what he's achieved in the game so far.
All great managers are stubborn.
Yeah, and that can bring them success, and then sometimes it can bring them failure. So as we maybe are seeing now.
Yeah, look, all great managers are stubborn, but when things are not going right, there has to be a way to change things. You have to have a plan B. You have to do something different to change things around. And I like Conte's plan A. I don't think we've got the players particularly to implement it from 1 to 11, but I think that you have to be able to change things in a game or during the season if things aren't going right, and we're not seeing that at the moment, are we?
He actually did that at Chelsea, didn't he? he switched to the he
did.
changed midway through the season and switched, and that's what won them the league really in the end.
Because they started as a back four though. That wasn't really his system.
But
They
that
started
was
as a
like
back-
yesterday, lads, didn't they? They went to a back four. Did they go to a back four from a back
They
three?
went to a back three.
Sorry, they went
Wolves
to a
went
back
to a
three.
back
Yeah.
three, yeah.
Yeah, they went to a back three. So this thing about waiting 10 minutes to see what happens. All right, cool. Let's wait 10 minutes. But guys, did we see anything get better from 70th minute? When he made that Jimenez, right? When Costa went off, that guy, we couldn't deal with his movement. He just kept finding pockets of space, and he was in those half spaces constantly in the second half. I'm watching him thinking it's a matter of time, and his shot was the shot that obviously led to the assist of the goal, and obviously Foster's to blame on that. But what I'm saying is with Jimenez, it was a matter of time, guys. You could just see he was so much better than Costa on the day. Costa wasn't causing us too many problems, but Jimenez was just running around, being a nuisance, and he made Wolves so much more threatening in that final third. And the thing is, I looked at the 70th minute and thought, right, do I take a draw or do I want to now go for it? And I'm thinking, no, we've got to go for it because we're getting to that end of the season now. We can't take draws anymore. We've got to win these games if we want top four. We've really got to push it now. Looking at Stellini thinking, right, what's off the bench? And he's taken off Porro. I mean, he could have had another free kick. He could have put in a banging cross. He
If
could
they
have
would
done a
let him
little bit
take
more.
it.
Well, yeah, that's another thing, and that's favoritism, and maybe that's another topic. But for me, Stellini got it wrong. I don't know if Conte's in his ears. I don't know. I mean, normally they have like headphones. He didn't have any headphones in, so maybe he was just getting instructions from someone on the bench. You know, maybe someone was on the phone to Conte. But if someone wasn't on the phone to Conte, and Conte's watching it on a screen like us, and he's like, "Sorry, I can't help much from here because I'm seeing, 10% of the game. You guys make the decisions." Then Stellini's got it wrong, or Ryan Mason's got it wrong. But if Conte was on the phone and he was watching it, how much can you blame someone from watching it from TV? Really, you guys have you go to all the matches, man. It's totally different to TV. You can't make decisions from the television. You can't blame Conte too much on this one.